What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. So I've seen quite a few comments on individuals asking, why can Lucid not go through a substantial run similar to Opendoor? So there's always these stocks that just tend to go up and without any real resistance, it just breaks out like crazy. So Opendoor, I actually do cover that one on one of my other YouTube channels, but over the last 1 month alone, it is up 175%. So I wanted to kind of talk about what is causing Opendoor to go higher and if that could be ever translated and work for Lucid. So I'm gonna go over all the things that you need to know, but first make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, when it comes down to Opendoor, over the last 1 month, like I said, it's up 175%. Over the last 1 year, up 234%. But what a lot of individuals are not really sharing with you is the crappy price action that led to this type of scenario. So over the last 5 years, even given the recent price action, it's still down 44.58%. And if you bought, for instance, at $35, it had a low of 56 cents. So very similar price action to Lucid. So I think in reality, you need a stock to be extremely discounted to the point where it's borderline bankruptcy, where you have a lot of individuals kind of saying, hey, you know what, the stock's going to go belly up. And I get it. A lot of bears always say Lucid is going to go bankrupt in like 2026, 2027. Spoiler alert, they definitely won't. Only because they don't actually have that much debt. There's a big difference on a side note between actually taking on debt and dilution. And so Lucid has a lot of room to dilute, so meaning they won't go belly up. So, that's kind of side topic. But nonetheless, one thing that Opendoor has is one main influencer, if that kind of makes sense, or a pumper, whatever you want to call them. But ultimately, you need a roaring kitty type of individual. In Opendoor's case, you have someone called Eric Jackson, and I think he's famous for calling the Carvana run and whatever else. So that has caused a lot of people to jump on, and he himself is calling Opendoor and the, I guess, new followers a cult. And so I know cult probably brings a little bit more negativity rather than anything, but the difference between Opendoor and Lucid is there is a lot of individuals, retail investors, that kind of criticize Lucid. And I think generally speaking, myself being one of them, I always like to play devil's advocate. I never want to pump a stock. I could easily do that, like, hey, look, Lucid's going to go to $500 tomorrow, buy now. But I'm critical of it because even despite me owning Lucid itself, I want to be transparent. A lot of individuals tend not to focus on the negatives and they'll just focus on the positives. So for instance, if you have Roaring Kitty or some other individual come in and say, hey, you know what, Lucid, and they ignore the negatives, but they say, hey, you know what, Lucid actually has a very good vehicle and they have a lot of good promise because of blah, 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 and whatever they want to bring up. That will get people to really start to follow Lucid, because I kind of looked at Opendoor and the sentiment leading into this rally was horrific. A lot worse than Lucid. A lot of people were really wanting just to like completely burn down their HQ. That's how bad the sentiment was. Because like I said, it went down to about 56 cents, give or take. So it's not all sunshines and roses and all the other fun jazz. But at the end of the day, you need a stock to get extremely discounted. But then more specifically, you need one individual. And I think Lucid right now, it still does have a lot of individuals that is very optimistic. I'm not here to sway you in either direction. It's good to be critical, in my opinion, coming from an investor standpoint on anything, even outside of Lucid. You always have to be aware of all the positives and negatives. And if you're still willing to invest, then it's on you, right? But if you actually purposefully ignore the negatives, then honestly, there's nobody other than to blame other than yourself, right? So I think in reality, Lucid could potentially in the foreseeable future turn to Opendoor. But like I said already, you need it to be borderline bankruptcy. And so, of course, with it doing a fresh reverse stock split, sitting at 1841, it went up 13.92% alone on Friday, which was very positive. A lot of hype associated to rate cuts and so forth. but I don't feel that it's discounted enough. And I know that's going to be kind of a tough pill for a lot of individuals to swallow, especially Lucid being down 49.28% just this last year alone. But like I said, it has to be borderline bankruptcy. So I think it still potentially needs to go down a substantial amount before you start to get some sort of like roaring kitty individual to get in. So at the end of the day, I think having a cult-like mentality is overrated. Yes, what's happening to Opendoor recently is very fun, is very exciting, but eventually some people are going to be buying at the top, and this hype is going to diminish. No different than GameStop. Not obviously this year, but back in 2021, some people, from what you can imagine, bought at the very, very top of that squeeze. And guess what? They're stuck. There's nothing that they can do. That's if they're still holding. But one thing that as well, the difference between Lucid and Opendoor, both are very heavily shorted. So in Lucid's case, post-reverse stock split is sitting at 18.26%. So that's 22.92 million shares overall are being shorted. Just to pull up Opendoor. So Opendoor right now is sitting at 23.77% of the free float being shorted. So at the end of the day, both are very heavily shorted. So that's also another element that adds to all of this. Same goes for GameStop. Again, just adding that to the mix. So I just wanted to kind of pop on only because I've seen quite a few comments on social media about Lucid and if it can go through a similar run to Opendoor. So let me know your thoughts. Is there any other elements I'm potentially missing out on? Would you want Lucid to go through similar type of price action where it just goes up, knowing that very well the underlying business, nothing's really changed with it, so potentially it could go down again? Like, what's your viewpoint on that? Hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers, including Lucid. I've been calling the day trades over the last couple trading days, and it's been exactly on point just with Lucid alone and also many others. So I put out daily day trades, multiple swing trades as well. So worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. Link in the description below and also the comments. And with all that, appreciate all of you watching.